All right, welcome everybody to a quick video that shows you what's new in Omnipeek version 11.1. Hopping right into it, there were really 5 key areas where we made some pretty significant improvements in Omnipeek 11.1, and we're going to get into each one in a bit more detail, so I'm not going to get into it on this slide. It's really just to level set. And by the way, I'm Jay Botello, Head of Products, and with me is Chris Bloom, so you're going to hear 2 voices. You're going to hear me for a little bit, and when we get to actually demoing some of these features, Chris will be coming on. So why don't you let everyone know who you are, Chris?
Yep, here I am, and I'm excited about showing some of these new features in Omnipeek version 11.
Here we go. So those are the 2 voices you're going to hear. All right, so first and foremost is the faster capture-to-disk performance. And what we've achieved with 11.1 is mainly through just configuration choices in Omnipeek, the ability to very much level off your capture-to-disk performance. So let's say you want to do lossless capture-to-disk, running all your packets to disk at 15 gigabits per second. Don't ever want to drop a packet. Okay, with 11.1, the way to do that is instead of assigning the full disk space in your appliance, assign some percentage of it for the packet file size mix that we used in our testing, which is a pretty good mix. It's what we feel is an average mix across the industry. If we allocated 60% of the space in the appliance that we were testing, we could achieve 15 gigabits per second of capture to disk at RAID 0 in a lossless configuration. So the way you see that is you can see in the screenshot, in the numbers that are up on top, the second column of them you see down at the bottom, packets dropped 0. And you can see the length of time we ran this test over. We ran it over hours and hours and hours. So the disks were wrapping, etc. So this is a way for your customers to be able to achieve a full 15 gigabits per second with our T300 with just some simple configuration changes. Just instead of assigning the full disk space, assign 60% of that disk space, do it as a single capture, don't start other monitoring captures, and you will be able to provide lossless capture to disk. If you need to go a little bit faster with a T300, we have an option of selling an external sub-storage system that goes along with that. And what that essentially does is it doubles the number of disk spindles you're able to write to. And in that case, if we split that capture up into 2 10-gig captures, now we're running 2 10-gigabit per second captures simultaneously, so for a 20 gigabit per second aggregate using all of the disk space. So this would be, for example, a 96 terabyte T300 with another 96 terabyte sub-storage system, essentially using all of that disk space, and you could operate at 20 gigabits per second without any drop packets. Again, you can, so that's very, very significant capture-to-disk performance, and it's all done simply through configuration and taking advantage of a few tweaks that we made in the software to enhance the capture-to-disk capability. So I think what you will find, especially with the sub-storage system, at 20 gigabits per second, this is only adds up to a 4U system. So 2U for the T300, 2U for the sub-storage system. This compares with competitive products that take 15 rackable units worth of equipment to get to that same kind of performance. So this is definitely a winner and a winning combination when it comes to capture-to-disk performance and saving all of your packets to disk for forensics analysis. Okay, so moving on from the capture-to-disk topic, I want to talk a bit about faster forensic search. We made some significant improvements within the software when it comes to doing forensics capture. So what we see in the little table there is 2 different forensics captures. So one where we simply had a forensics capture against a running capture-to-disk session. So we were capturing packets, doing some light analysis on those packets as they came in and writing them to disk at 14 gigabits per second. And while it's writing them to disk at 14 gigabits per second, we performed a forensic search. And what we found is that with version 11.1, it's 3 times faster than what we saw with previous versions of the software. So a 300% improvement which is quite significant, because the way a lot of our customers use the appliances is they might be running a forensics capture, a capture-to-disk capture at 14 gigabits per second, and at the same time, they're often running a monitoring capture, so they can see some of what's going on the network simultaneously. Well, in that situation, the improvement on the forensics, the forensic search was actually 16 times, so 1,600%, but basically 16 times. So a tremendously significant improvement in the capture-to-disk performance. So, and you can see the conditions it was run under. There was no PFI. What we mean by no PFI is we were not using packet file indexing at this particular time. Packet file indexing makes forensic searches even faster, but what we were trying to compare was just the raw performance. So we didn't want to kind of hide it behind any sort of indexing optimizations. That's why we had it off. But using PFI or packet file indexing would make your forensic searches even faster. We were using 512 megabyte file sizes to write the data to disk, and we were doing a 30-minute capture. You can see how many files we had saved, and what we did in our search. We searched over 10 minutes of packets. It was really 881 million packets, or 614 gigabytes worth of traffic. So you can see the search we did was a very, very large search for those packets. So this was our second topic, faster forensic search. I think you'll find some incredibly improved numbers with version 11.1 for forensic search. Okay, so our third topic, as I mentioned in the agenda, was the addition of NetFlow version 9 and IPFIX to our NetFlow adapter support. So if you recall, in 11.0, we added for the first time the ability to be able to capture not only raw packets, but capture NetFlow data from NetFlow sources like switches and routers, and be able to process that NetFlow data within Omnipeek and within our software, just as if it was packet data. And we did that for V5 in NetFlow V5 in our previous version. Now in 11.1, we've added V9 and IPFIX. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I'm excited about showing off the new NetFlow feature in our Omni engine. So remember, this is not an Omnipeek console feature. You're now able to actually receive the NetFlow, in fact, any number of NetFlow streams from different, they're typically Cisco routers or whatever NetFlow generator that you have running. Many of you probably already have NetFlow going, so we definitely recommend that you try out our Omnipeek as a NetFlow collector. So the way that you do this is you connect to your engine and you go to adapters, and let's just real quick, we're going to insert a NetFlow IPFIX adapter. It will come up with a default port of 9995. That could be any adapter, and you can create multiple adapters on different ports. We'll create the adapter, and you'll see here there's a little message that says that we're opening up 9995 in your IP tables, in your firewall, because we typically have all that stuff closed down pretty tight, and that will open only when you're running this capture, so it'll open and close dynamically. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll create that, and there it is. We now have a new adapter. Now that we have the adapter, we can create a new capture off of this adapter, and I will go ahead and just call it NetFlow 9995. We'll make sure that we have all of our analysis on, and that is really the point of our NetFlow adapter. Is for our existing customers, about all of the high level analysis we have. We have the peer map and the expert and compass, and now you're able to use those views on your NetFlow data. It's actually pretty amazing. So I'll create that capture, and you'll see it come up here. Now, I've already configured my router to send V9 NetFlow to my Omnippliance, which, of course, is running this NetFlow adapter. So I'm just going to start here, and we'll go and to one of what people consider, the go-to views of Omni, and, we're waiting a second for it to get primed. You can see we've already received packets, and here you go. This is from NetFlow data, and this is the same kind of analysis you would see if you were collecting the if you're capturing the actual packets. Now, keep in mind that we don't have the actual packets, so there's been a lot of analysis, certain analysis that we can't do, like latency analysis, and we certainly can't look at the packets because we don't have the actual packets. But we are taking all the NetFlow flows and generating the analysis that we can from them. So we'll just go down the list here. You can see we have data in our network dashboard. You can see network utilization. You can see top talkers, top protocols, application identification. You can see anything that's over Yahoo or Google or Amazon, all of those, just as if you had the real packets. You're not going to get something like voice and video because you would need real packets for that. But in Compass, there you go. You can interact with this analysis just as if it were the real packets. So that's pretty impressive. And then there's a few others. For example, if you go into flows, it is NetFlow. So we're taking all the NetFlow and we can show you the client, the server, the ports, the protocols, lots of very useful information about the flows in this data. Anything you'd want to add to that, Jay, about the analysis?
Yeah, no, I think you made it real clear. It's what's excellent about it is, if you have a source that's NetFlow but you're used to doing packet analysis, you're looking at it exactly the same way. So it's if you used our solutions, this is a perfect addition to our solution.
Yeah, and I'm only showing you one capture with a NetFlow stream coming to it. I can create multiple captures, each listening on a different port, receiving NetFlow from different routers. One could be version 5, one could be 9, one could be IPFIX. And speaking of IPFIX, now my router, yes, it is actually. I can demonstrate that. We also have support for, let's see, my nodes. Let's go to my nodes, and there you see them, IPv6 support. So we're pretty happy about that, and we will continue adding more support for new IPFIX features as they come along. So I think that's a pretty good summary of NetFlow.
I think that's correct.
Excellent.
So now we want to turn our attention to improvements we've made on the voice and video or VoIP reporting. We added a few new reports. So we have an all calls report and a single calls report, and you see a static version of them here. But Chris is going to show you exactly how you generate these reports.
All right. So with our new VoIP reporting, those are obviously going to be against our voice and video dashboards. We have our calls dashboard and we have our media dashboard. And with our VoIP reporting, you can now select a particular call, and you can do either, well, if you haven't selected a call, you can do an all calls report or a single call report. So for starters, we'll just do the all calls report, and you'll see a dialog here, asking you where you want to save it. There's some good defaults there. I'll just go for those, and I've done this before, so we're going to replace that, and it's going to generate the report, and there it is, nicely formatted voice and video report. We'll just look through here. You can see that we've got a little header with some basic information about when it happened, where it happened from. Then we've got some statistics about it, little summary. I believe some of these statistics are actually new for voice over IP.
I think we have a slide covering that.
We have a slide covering that, yes. And then you've got your quality distribution in there, real nice, easy to read, and your quality overview over time, and then the events that occurred for those calls. This is a real nice improvement that is specific to voice and video. So we'll just go back and do the same thing for a single call as well. And for a single call, we'll just pick a different one here. We can pick the call, do a single call report, the same report, but it is for just that call. And there we go. We now have a report for just a single call. You can see here the call summary, just that call, and the call details. Lots of information about the call. Again, nicely formatted in a PDF report. Events for just that call. And then as well, since it's a single call, we can see detailed information about the media flows for that call.
Okay, so we also made some improvements to our voice and video dashboard. And the biggest thing you'll notice is really the second bullet, where we've added a new call quality graph to the voice and video dashboard, which gives you, a stacked bar chart that shows you number of calls on the vertical axis plus time on the horizontal axis, and then it stacks them. So you'll see a bar, if you have green for good calls, and then yellow for fair calls, the red for the poor calls, and you'll see them stacked in there. So it gives you a nice summary level of that. We also added in the summary statistics, the call summary area, which is the first bullet. We added a couple of fields. So on the call counter side, we added the average call duration, which wasn't there before, and on the closed call statistics side, we added the MOS CQ, MOS A and B scores as well. So now you can see an average of all your MOS scores for the calls in the view that you're looking at. So Chris will give you a quick view of what that looks like as well.
And here we are in the voice and video dashboard. And if you're familiar with this already, then you'll recognize the new counters that Jay mentioned in the call summary. You can see here the new measurements that we have. And then below you can see the call quality graph that you saw in the screenshot before as well, showing the different quality of calls over time, along with the graphs that we've had in there before.
Okay, so next on our list, and still in the VoIP area, we made a lot of improvements in VoIP, is we added a new tab for a real-time protocol graph. So, and Chris is going to show you this in a second in the program, but what this really is they're very small thumbnail graphs, so you're in the media view before, the graph jitter and those kinds of things, but it was really somewhat hard to read. So now we've added a tab so that you can expand that graph and make it larger, and Chris is going to show that to you as well.
So here we are in the voice and video dashboard. You can see all of the calls, and to get to the new report, you would just either double click or go to the voice and video flow visualizer. And here's where you would normally see the graphs that Jay was referring to, showing all the activity over time. But as you can also see, it's really small. So in order to get a bigger view of that, you can come down here to a new tab called RTP, click on that, and you'll see the same information, but in a much larger, easier to read form. Okay.
Lastly, in our VoIP improvements, several things. We'll kind of go through all of them, and then we'll share what we can that makes sense in a demo. We have some new features in the voice and video views, the ability to search for calls based on low MOS in the search UI, a new field that shows the DSCP for each of the calls. That's often quite important, actually, when you're trying to trace a call and find what might be bad in the routing of a call. And you can also now take advantage of a feature that existed with our expert events and our flows, our regular flows before. You can now take advantage of that for RTP as well, where if you find an expert event that triggered like low MOS score, you can click on that and it will immediately identify you in the panel above all of the calls that had that low MOS score. And again, Chris is going to be able to show you that. And then also in the voice and video area, in the forensics templates, now this is over when you're actually doing a forensic search, there's some additional things that you can choose in your forensic search template. You can enable experts for VoIP, enable the graphs, the traffic history, the QoS analysis. And lastly, not something that we can really demo at all, but we now also have the ability, when you're using call playback, to actually play back any DTMF tones that may show up on the call as well. And for those that aren't familiar with what that is, that's basically the key, the button pushes on a phone. So let's say somebody's on a call and they decide to transfer the call to somebody else. They're going to hit a number or a key to transfer, right? And they're probably going to hit a 3 or 4 or 5 digit extension number, and then maybe something else, and you'll hear those tones. Might not be of interest to you, but it was of interest to at least one of our customers. So now it's in the product.
Well, Jay, aren't you going to give us an example of what that might sound like?
I'm not, Chris. You did it much better than me the other day.
There's our demo.
All right, but Chris will be able to show you at least the ability to search and the other things in the voice and video views.
So Jay, there's a lot of features in there. Can you go ahead and list them as I do the demo? Which one should I show first?
Yeah, sounds good, Chris. So the first one was being able to search for calls based on low MOS in the calls view search UI.
Excellent. All right, so here we are back at the voice and video dashboard in the calls view, and we can see a number of calls here. But if I had lots of calls, that might not be obvious what the ones with the lowest MOS scores are. So in the search UI up here, there's now a new entry for MOS low, and I could say, okay, well, show me the calls that have MOS low, less than or equal to 2, and boom. So if that was 1,000 calls, I just saved a lot of time.
Really good. The next thing was the fact that we have the new DSCP column.
So the next feature is the new DSCP column in the media view. So we'll go to media, and you can see it right there. So now for each call, you can see what kinds of DSCP values you have for each of the calls.
Very good. Yeah, and you can see some are expedited forwarding, right, which makes sense, and assured forwarding, and all those that are on default. Those could be affected by the rest of your network because you're just using, using a default routing with all of your other traffic. So very good. The last thing in that section was selecting an event from the event summary tab and seeing the calls or media above that are affected by that particular expert event. Exactly,
and this is a feature that everybody is used to in the normal flows view, and so we've added it to the calls view as well. So now, if I were to click on RTP late packet arrival, we can immediately see all of the calls that had that event.
Keeping in mind that it only takes one event to highlight that call. All right, so the rest of the enhancements that were there in VoIP reporting are things that are a little more difficult to demo, but suffice it to say from the slide, it was the voice and video forensic search templates. Basically, there's some more choices when you do a forensic search on VoIP calls. And again, the VoIP DTMF tones, which Chris did an excellent job of giving you an audio demo of.
Simulated demo.
So next on the list, a smaller addition, but we added the network and application latency value fields in our experts. So you can see what the definitions are, at least according to the way we calculate network and application latency in our software. And we always made those calculations in the past, but they were not fields, in our flow tables. And now we've added those as fields in the flow tables, and Chris is going to be able to show you that.
Yeah, so here we are back in our flows view, and you can easily see the network and application latency. As Jay may have mentioned, we have a number of, we've always had a number of different latency and response time values, but having these specifically as application and network latency just makes it very clear, what's causing the latency. So now when you're looking at these flows, you can see what those latencies are. Of course, you can sort the flows by either the network latency or the application latency. And we have these two up to show you, but there's a variety of new application and network latency columns for average, best, and worst of those values.
All right, great. Thanks, Chris. That was great. And last but not least, as we pretty much do in every release, whether it's major or minor, we have some new decodes. You'll notice that quite a number of them were also VoIP related, kind of keeping in that VoIP theme. And then toward the bottom, a few other things like DNS, SCC, and a protospec for NetFlow, VN tags, tunneling, and that kind of thing. But generally, a number of them around VoIP. And then some new ones in just other general areas for requests that came up from customers. New decodes are something that we deal with, again, in every release. If you ever have a customer or you are a customer that needs a decode, you just simply come in through tech support, make the request. These are things that are very easy for us to add, both midstream and then, of course, then include permanently within the next release once that next release comes along. So that was I think a nice overview of what's new in 11.1. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach back out to us here at Savvius, and we'll certainly be happy to address any of those questions for you. So